Welcome, fellow Last Faces, to another episode of LPF Debrief, where Chris and I talk about comic books, TV shows, and movies. And if you are watching this on the YouTube, I think you guys will see some new graphics brought to you by our good buddy Yendi, even though he's not recording with us and still not watching any of the cool things that we watch. And we haven't shamed him in a while. So he is safe from being shamed today because he did provide us with these new graphics. So we appreciate you, buddy. So even though he's not recording with us, he is still contributing because he's still our boy. So we appreciate you, Andy. Thank you. And enjoy our new graphics, guys. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below if you guys like them, if you not like the new looks or whatever. But I know you guys are not only here for the our devilishly good looks. You guys are also here to hear what we thought about episode 7 of Ahsoka. As always, guys, spoilers are ahead. So if you don't want to hear anything spoiled, please pause this, go watch the episode, and come on back so you can hear Chris and I's thoughts. So we are going to get right into it, guys. Let's start talking about episode 7. We are still in the mouth. Oh, well, we were in the mouth of the Paragol. Um, so we just left that. And obviously, before all of that transpired, we do see General Syndulla in the courtroom amongst all the council people, making a debate off of the decision that was made for her to go ahead and follow Ahsoka and obviously use her general orders in order to kind of get, the fleet and everything to see there was an actual mission going on. And we know that there's some haters on the council, right, that have an issue with that.
Bro.
And what he was pressing this matter very hard, like strongly talking
Everybody's
about the
everybody's face was like, "Whose side are you on, bro?
yeah, like what are
What's
you
going on
talking
here?"
about, man? Like also, but the thing is, I do want to get to that because he was so like it's crazy because if you don't experience people like that, you know the kind of person that is. The
Yeah,
person that's just like, "Oh, like I'm just gonna we're good right now. Like let's just live in this bubble that, this potential threat." Mind you, a person who's dealt with numerous amount of threats before. Like this is not her first rodeo. Decided to make a choice, which those same choices is what got her to become a general. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so to doubt her intuition on saying, like, yo, this is a major threat that's going to potentially happen. We need you to, come here and like, we need to be ready for the worst, like, potentially the worst if he does show up. Like, it's way better to, my saying is, you ain't got to get ready if you stay ready. And General Sanula is staying ready. You know what I mean? And then they're just very much like, oh, we don't have to deal with this, so we're just going to be like, oh, don't worry about any of that stuff. So I don't understand why he like there's so much like remnants for him to like believe her and to kind of like use these resources. Like, what else are you using the resources on right now anyway? Like, there's they we all want peace, right? But if a potential disruptor of that peace is coming, why wouldn't you like all hands on deck to be like, listen, this might happen, right? Um, but one before we get into the obvious cameo that was amazing, uh, it did this did give us a timeline of where we are in this TV show, and I'm glad they kind of solidified where in the timeline we are. So we know after all that information and all the details that was given that this is after season 3 of Mandalorian. So we're right at the perfect timeline for obviously all of this to mesh,
yeah,
which is kind of what the timeline they wanted, right? Because they wanted it to be right between that right between all that because obviously our goal here is to get that collaboration of all of them meeting each other for the first time. So, or well, not for the first time for some, but obviously, you know, the Rebels crew kind of meeting the Mando crew and kind of getting that timeline thing where hopefully we get them on a mission and all that good stuff. So, getting that guaranteed detailed timeline helps us figure out exactly where we're going to be at. And then, of course, the going forward into our very unexpected, and I am amazed, honestly, that they were able to keep it this quiet for this long because normally you get, and I think this is one of those advantages of um this is what I like when I don't read too much into things or like see because maybe it was out there and I just didn't know, but like I was watching it and as soon as I heard the voice, I was like, "Oh snap!" Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To get that C-3PO cameo, it's also just a perfect touch, right? Because obviously, rest in peace, Carrie Fisher. We can't get like her to still like, but still having her presence there, even through characters like C-3PO, where it's just like, oh, uh, the the just saying, Leia's like basically saying like, nah, she approved this, like
Yeah.
it's okay, like you're all good,
And the
and then
fact that you didn't
it
include her in the meeting and blah blah
yeah,
blah should
and it's
be,
cool because it's also gives that like it does give that very powerful rank, right, for
Mhm.
her too, right? Like, when they say, or Organa is like she was the one who approved this, and it's basically like, yo, well, we can't we can't fight that. So what'd you think of the cameo and that whole beginning section?
I love the cameo. I miss, like, I don't know why. I love the way C3PO walks. It's just
Hmm.
part of him. So watching him come in and he's like, uh, everybody's like, "What the heck is this thing doing here?" And he's like, "Oh,
A mere droid,
yeah, yeah, a mere droid
Just a yeah.
chopper, always
Yeah.
wanting the smoke in the background." He's like, "What?" He
I'm
like
so good.
he
Yeah.
sat up, bro.
Yo, like, and that's one thing, and we talked about this in some of the earlier episodes of our reviews, but like Chopper is about it at all times. Like he is the most violent droid. I don't care what anyone says. That man will, that droid wants the smoke at all times. And genuinely felt disrespected when he was like a mere droid. He was like, "Do you know who you talking to?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you can get that kind of thing. And it's just like,
Yeah,
hey, relax, Chopper. Like,
yeah,
calm down.
yeah. It was it's something, man. Also the fact that I love when Yuan gets angry. So
Yeah.
whenever he's in the ship and she's like, "Oh, you should have said something," and he's like,
But
"I did. What do you mean?" Like,
yeah.
and she's just sitting there smiling. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that whole scene, that guy, man, he just pressed so hard. And I told Bree, I was like, "This guy, we're gonna find out this guy's like selling
Yeah.
something, or he's giving out information or something." Because there's no way, like that was a huge red flag for how hard he was
No.
pushing.
He was
Um,
pushing real hard for that, like for this, for it to not be like to try to strip her from her things. And of course, we know that's one of the ways people like in power they like to once they see things kind of um once they see kind of things kind of falling out of their control, he's trying to push that like, oh, we need to have control of the situation. So we
yeah,
know all things at all times so no one figures out. And usually that means the party's guilty because he probably has something to do with this return. Maybe we'll find out, like you said, there's a funding thing that's going on, and that's why he's so pushed to try to get General Syndulla's title taken away,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah. But overall, like this episode for me, it's hard to believe that we have one left. Like it's kind of weird. The spot we're in, there's a lot. I mean, I know they're gonna save quite a bit for because there's no. Well, now I'm hearing there is an Ahsoka season 2.
Well, that's the thing. No one knows. A lot. Well,
Because originally it
before
was supposed to be
even
one season, then Mando, then movie closing out both.
yeah. Well, that was the original plans. Now also forgot to mention this, and there is a agreement for the writers. So
Yes, yeah, yeah,
clap it up for the writers getting some of those. Hopefully, the actors are next. Also, there was a big push on a video game one too. So we gotta. That's for another conversation. But so with the writers' strike now, potentially, in the future being over, like in the near future, I think we'll get a better timeline of what things are going to happen. I am interested, and honestly, I don't. I'm glad that they don't announce a season 2 yet because if there is one, I would rather them wait till after the end of season 1
yeah,
because it still gives us that kind of like I want
what's gonna
it to
happen.
be
Like, yeah,
believable, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't want it to watch a season and be like, "Oh, well, I know there's gonna be a season 2," right? So, like, um, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to end it to a point where it has to be like a cliffhanger, because you could still do a season 2 and kind of be fine with where you leave off of.
yeah,
I just don't want them to be like, "Oh, there's a season 2, so we're gonna kind of like" we should still be able to have the story we need in this season without and I'm not saying they shouldn't rely on it, because we knew from the beginning this would be a collective effort, right? So yeah, I agree with you when I think of it from a solo standpoint of Ahsoka, that there's still a lot, because we don't even know what's in the cargo. We don't essentially know what Thrawn's plan is at all at this
yeah.
point. But being that said, we do know what his plan is for this season. He wants to get off of where he's at. And then, because we know we're going into this is potentially going into Mando, well, not even potentially, we know this is going into Mando. We also, potential a second season. So them saying what his overall plan is, being that, of course, if you've read the books, you know that his plan is to essentially recreate the empire. But being that you don't know that, let's say you didn't know that off the bat, I still think his main goal and where we're at for this last episode still fits in line, because Ahsoka's main goal, her main goal is to bring back, now is to bring back Ezra and stop Thrawn from coming back. So trying to figure all of that out is what her season is, what this season is about, and how she's going to whether succeed or she's not. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I mean, with all things considered, I can totally see, and we'll probably talk a little bit more, dive into this after. But of course, I can see, obviously, Thrawn has to make it back, right? Like, it's I don't. Especially knowing all the information that we know, knowing that this is going to bleed in, he has to be the bad for Mandalorian. So I don't see how he doesn't make it. I'm just interested to see how he gets there or how it happens. So that's just that thought on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of things. Also, we got our Anakin Skywalker again, doing the training segments through the holograms, which I always think is cool, and it's just getting a little bit more information of how highly Ahsoka thought of him, especially when she has that conversation with Huang, and he's basically like, he was a great master, like, all this positive things to say about him. And it kind of goes to what we talked about last episode, how this is not only just a redemption for Darth Vader and the Anakin character, it's just a redemption also for Hayden Christensen. So it works out because you get to really see his acting chops, and just how, like, he really cares about this role of Anakin Skywalker. And you can see that, like, even with these short spurts, just his overall excitement. I'm just glad that this redemption is not only going for his character, but also for the actor himself.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna say about the. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking out. No,
On which,
no, it's
on which part?
it was about Thrawn. Oh yes, Thrawn.
Mm,
Because we were talking about Anakin. I think we talked about last episode that we thought that Thrawn knew about uh well, he knows about Anakin being Darth Vader, but I
yeah.
thought he knew about Ahsoka
No, no,
being
no. He
his.
didn't know, because he didn't know that when in Rebels he didn't know, because even if you go by any of the books and all that stuff, he doesn't necessarily. Again, it's an educated guess on his part. He never got like the full confirmation of whether it's Anakin was Darth Vader, but he also is too smart to not know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, um, so yeah, so he yeah, so he doesn't know. He knows. So as soon as he saw it, it was kind of like, basically, hey, like, yeah. Once he found out that information, he was like, wait a second, like, oh, okay. But I think it was putting those wheels together to see, oh, what am I going to use for this, right? Like,
Yeah.
how am I going to use this as my advantage, knowing that I also know her master, like I know the things that he taught her, right? So
And
or
also, he
like
knew how
I
to
know who
play.
the character is.
Yeah, he also knew how to plan against it because as soon as he was like, okay, wait,
Yep.
her master was Anakin Skywalker. Okay. Well, if she's like her master, she's gonna do some crazy things. Like she's just gonna be unpredictable. So
Yep.
we need to get all angles on this. And I know Thrawn's one of his big descriptors is like he looks at war like a game of chess. And this
Hmm.
episode really displayed that little like the small touches of like the hologram
Yep.
showing the field and everything like that. He could tell that uh, what's his name? I always forget his name, man. Uh,
Balin.
yeah, Balin. He could tell that he was not in the fight, and he's like, "Where is he?"
Hmm.
So he
Yeah.
could tell the parameters and everything like that, and him building around, showing off his smarts, right? Saying, "Okay, they took my pawn, but I'm about to get in a position
Well,
of checkmate." So
yeah.
it's really cool to see how he was building up to that moment.
Yeah, Thrawn's character essentially is always to be one step ahead, which is
Yeah.
why, like, even the whole thing, like, his whole premise is I'm this great battle tacticianer. Like, you know what I mean? I'm going to make sure my pieces are all in a bunch unless someone does something completely out of the unexpected because he's calculating the things that, right? So, like, that's why, like, the whole minefield scene, right? It was just like, okay, the Ahsoka's probably going to come, like, be on the way here. Just in case she shows up, I'm gonna put like minefields everywhere. Like, you know, I'm gonna put mines everywhere just in case we never like this person doesn't make it. But also the snarkiness is what I love about Thrawn's characters too, right? Because he's very like calm and he's just like, it appears that Ahsoka is alive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just like he knew, but he was just like, look at that. But like, he's like, I didn't mean to tell you, I told you so, but it looks like she's alive. So it doesn't look like that your plan here is working. So, but also once he found out, and like you were saying, once he found out that Anakin was her master, and how quickly things started, like he started to turn those wheels. Right, he was just basically like, well, I know based off of what I know of Anakin's character that his apprentice is going to have some of his similar qualities, so she's going to be very unpredictable. Like we're not going to be able to just play this out very simply, but I still have to make sure I'm one step ahead of her.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the cool thing about his character, and that's why he's my favorite because he does his battles at such a different like level than everyone else is. Like, because even the people who are on his side have no idea what he's planning because it's like, wait, dang, like you're already ahead. Like you already knew she might have potentially came, and you set up this whole minefield, right? And even the amount of people that he sent in, like you know, what I mean, knowing that Balin would also um like Balin would try to recruit some people, like you know what I mean, and he's just already putting in like, okay, well, I know what these plans are, and I can see how this battle is going to kind of thing. But also, I did love once they hit the minefield, and it did show Sabine's force sensitivity when Ahsoka reaches out to call, and she's like, you know, Sabine, like, where are you? Basically, and basically her being like, oh snap, like Ahsoka, I can hear you. But also Ahsoka just being able to see that kind of like see where they are to kind of get an understanding of everything like that was also cool. I still don't understand why we're waiting to tell
Ezra,
Ezra
what's
what the
going
hell
on?
is
Bro,
going on.
whenever she's like,
Like,
whenever Sabine, I'm telling you, man, Ahsoka's this series made me not like Sabine. Like
uh,
it is rough with her, like as the annoying character, and she used to not be the annoying character.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, whenever she's like, I thought you were dead, and then Ahsoka gives her that look, like, mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sure. But
Yeah.
the fact that she, quickly comes back and she's like, and miss this reunion and gives Ezra a hug. That
Yep.
moment was very sweet. It was cool to see Ezra's first fight as the Avatar. It's pretty cool.
Which I called last episode. I called it. I said, what did I say? I actually nailed it. I said he wasn't going to use his lightsaber, and I said he was going to be very force like powerful because that's just a common thread in people, especially when they lose or gift their lightsaber. They normally just
They have to
use the
survive.
force, right?
They
So they
get more
just,
in
but
tune
that's
with the
the only thing
Force.
he can train on. And he was like, "No, nah, I'm good." Like, you know what I mean? So, but even before we got to that whole reunion stuff, we did see Balin and Shin kind of have that communication of like Balin's like in for a bigger game, and he's just like, yeah, you can go. Like, I can see what your path is, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit too aggressive for me, and I know what you want to do. Like, I'm not going to prohibit you from doing that. We still don't know what Balin's overall goal is, besides he's trying to find it from the beginning. I'm wondering if this gets tackled next episode, because that is something I feel that would need to be closed out before the final episode of this. Because like, what is his overall plan? Unless it's a plan that affects the galaxy in such a bigger way that he shows up later on. So I'm very interested to see
Well, how
what
much did
happens
they film
there.
before
That's
he
no one
passed?
knows. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, that because they if they filmed all his scenes, but also I mean they probably will have enough footage to use the CGI kind of thing like they did for younger Luke and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like if so, but if it is a bigger cause and it doesn't end this season and there's more detail to it, then it's going to come later.
Yeah.
So that wasn't that one was a bit of an interesting one. I do like I said, Shin kind of was just like, yo, okay, I guess I got to listen. But also that's when Balin, I mean, that's when Thrawn started to notice. He's like, wait a second, well, we're down one mercenary, and like he already had questions, right? Like, and this is where he does the "I told you so" kind of. He has the "I told you so" kind of moments where he's just like, well, I mean, like I knew this was gonna happen. Like, so like, yeah, we're down one person, but where is he? Like, you know what I mean? He's very like,
Yeah.
where I'm wondering where he is. Like, we're down a mercenary. So we did have that fight between Ahsoka and Balin again, where he just thought he was dead. I think this was the first lightsaber battle that I didn't like thoroughly enjoy. I thought it was kind of like
It was very brief.
it was
It
very
wasn't
brief.
memorable. It wasn't like
Yeah, it wasn't memorable, which makes it
yeah.
me felt like it was not necessary, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like because the thing is, we don't know Balin's goal, right? And I don't know what his end game is. So for him to then stop to try to prevent Ahsoka from making that fight, it still makes it seem like he was trying to pull both strings where he's kind of like, oh, I still want to help my apprentice, but also like I'm ready to leave her. So it kind of gives a mixed message in the
I think
sense
it was
of
kind of
like,
a distraction. I think he was just trying to lead her to say like, "Hey, I'm still a part of this. Don't pay attention to what I'm doing over here." I think he was just trying to stay like, "I'm still a part of this," so she doesn't have to worry about like, "Hey, he's after something else. Like he's doing something." But he's trying to keep the main focus on Thrawn of like, "This is who you really want to stop. You don't want to stop
yeah,
me."
maybe there could be some deception, but what I guess what I'm saying is I didn't feel that way
Yeah.
when it happened, right? As it was happening, it was very much like, okay, this is kind of like you're just in her way.
Hmm.
And then, you had the whole thing with I did love the dialogue before she lands with Huang, where it's just like where he's basically like, oh, he was like, well, well, your timing was off the last time, and he was like, and I've apologized sincerely for it. It's but like I love that. I love droid and droid connections because
Yeah.
it's like how different they are, and it's just so cool to see how they have these different uh like relationships with people. So that I really enjoyed. But like I said, that fight itself was very brief, and I just didn't find it too necessary. And again, that could be a very thing that is retroacted, where like, okay, I can see why he did that now, but at the moment, it was just like you're trying to stop her, and we know she's not getting stopped. Like she's
Hmm.
going to make this reunion. Like we know it's going to happen. So I guess the suspense kind of thing also is theirs, where you just like it wasn't like the last battle where we had that epic battle, and it was like, well, she might be like not saying that she was gone, but it was also like this could potentially happen. Maybe that is part of the story. So I felt it was very much not a necessary fight, and it wasn't like that spectacular for us to be like, oh, this was a great fight scene.
Yeah.
Um, that's how I felt about that. I did think the slowest chase scene was hilarious, where they just trying to run on the poor little guys are just trying to make it out. They're throwing rocks and slingshots, and everyone. Meanwhile, you've got Ezra in there who just stop it. You clearly you can take these guys out.
Yeah.
Like just stop the thing. Tell them he should have been told them to go into that basic hermit mode so that that situation could have been handled. I don't understand why these Jedi's do that sometimes. You knew you weren't going to make it out. You knew you weren't going to make it out. Those things like clearly wasn't going to outrace them. So I don't know why he even tried.
I mean, it's also the. I had a weird feeling about the scale of the vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So whenever they're like driving up top, and then the moment that they, they ball up, and Sabine and him get in to get out of the side, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh wait, this is their movable house. I forgot about that. But
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
like, it just look weird. And they crouch down. I was like, what is happening? And then they come out the side door. I was like, why didn't they just jump out? It doesn't even look. It didn't even look that big, to be honest. So it was just one of those funny moments. But yeah, those things, man. We still don't know the names of. Or no, he told us the names.
Yeah, he told their names. I don't remember it off the top of my head because I don't have it in my notes.
Yeah, but they're another great species. We also found out, I forgot to mention, where Zeb is. So he's training
Yes.
the recruits, which is leading me to think that we're not getting him at the end of
No.
the season.
Probably not. I think again, being that this is going to cross over, of course. I think, of course, we're going to get Zeb, but I think this kind of confirmed we won't get him this season because I highly doubt that they're because I'm assuming that in a I guess we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I'm assuming the end of this of episode, the next episode, is going to be Thrawn making it there
Yeah.
and it kind of ending off a cliffhanger. Maybe it's going to be this big battle, and then the cliffhanger is going to be, well, Thrawn still made it to the galaxy. He might not make it with his full resources or something like that, just to show that you can do that. But yeah, just so that can happen. So, but yeah, it was interesting with all of that. And then I did like that Ahsoka kind of tried to reel Shin in. Basically, after the fight, we saw all of those. Again, that fight scene though was great, where everyone comes in, where we get to see basically, like you were saying, Ezra be the Avatar, where he's just basically just doing force moves. But one thing that I love, and I have it here, is that I love that they still let the Jedi's use weapons. Like, you know what I mean? Ezra
Yeah.
using like a blaster.
Mm-hmm.
I love when they do that because like it's like, you know what? Like, yeah, I can do all this stuff, but sometimes a blaster is what you need. Sometimes just using a regular blaster. And he had it very Call of Duty like too. It was very like it was really cool, but like it's cool to see them adapt to that situation to where you're gonna have to fight and stuff like that. So I really did appreciate that Ezra did use like didn't need his lightsaber and kind of just fought that way. And then you kind of it also allowed that Sabine and Shin rivalry to continue, right? Because she was gonna pull out a lightsaber. I also love when he was like, "Is that one of your friends?" And she's like, "No." And he was like, "She's like you." And he was like, "Lightsaber? Yeah." You know what I mean? It was very that nice quirky conversations that they used to always have in Rebels, which I thought was a nice thing. But of course, Ahsoka would believe Shin can be redeemed, right?
Yeah.
Because she knows the whole story. Like, she doesn't know the full story yet, but like she feels like there's a redemption that can happen, especially with all the things to Anakin and how he's helping her like basically survive and all that stuff. So I think it's not unlike Ahsoka to believe that because I know some people were complaining about they let her get away, but it's like well, I mean, at the end of the day, Ahsoka's not going to capture her, and also where are they gonna take her?
Yeah. There's no.
Like, like you know what I mean? Like, where if they get captured, they're not gonna put her on the ship. Well, like what? Like you know what I mean? It's I don't know where he's gonna what the plan was for that. So I get like her running off was kind of a little off-putting, but again, what were they gonna do with her character? So I don't know where they were gonna put her. And then that takes us to the reunion where Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine are finally like, hey, like Ahsoka obviously not showing her upsetness or being upset. She's just relieved at this moment, right?
Yeah.
And also really happy to see that Ezra is alive and seeing his beard and seeing how much he's grown, right? And it was that moment of like, oh, I'm seeing my like kind I'm seeing you fully grown now. It's really cool to see that. So that moment they shared was obviously beautiful. Just again with all of their history and all that backstory. So I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and that pretty much took us to the end of the episode there, where they basically were just like, "Well, I'm finally gonna make it home." But the one thing going back to Thrawn before we wrap it up, Thrawn saying again, showing off his tactical skills, saying like, "Yeah, we might have lost this, but we also there's one thing." He's like, "The cargo's almost full, like you know what I mean, and we've basically taken away the one thing Ahsoka can't afford to lose, and that's time." And then he just walks away because he's the best character ever. Just you know what I mean? And I will say that for myself. But yeah, he is my favorite, and I'm glad we're seeing reasons on why Thrawn is such a badass. So overall, the episode was a great setup to what we're about to come up to. I am hoping some questions are answered moving forward, but before we head off, Chris, let me know what was your favorite moment of this episode, and what do you think is going to happen in the next episode?
All right. Favorite moment is that fight between well, basically the whole chess match.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed seeing it come up on the hologram and him explaining what was going on.
Yeah,
That was my favorite part. What's going to happen in the next episode? Um, we're going to
just a
get
quick.
some kind of big cameo, right?
Okay.
Who it is, I don't know. The cop out could be Mando, but I feel like it's
Uh-huh.
something else. We're getting somebody big. We have to. I feel like.
Yeah.
Um, I hope we get Skulls. I hope we get the closing.
Objective. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we get the closing of that. And I think they get left behind. I think it ends with Thrawn being like, "Na na 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 boo boo," and
I would love that.
and Ahsoka's gonna be like, "Huh," because as soon as the whales left in that mine scene, I was like, "Well, there
Yeah.
goes the ride."
Yeah. And then I love that when he was like, "Oh, you had to say something."
Yeah,
Like, you know,
so
she's very superstitious. But yeah, Thrawn obviously is going to be my favorite part for most of these episodes. So because I'm just going to love, but I again the chess piece, the explanations. If you read the books, that's what he does. He explains his movements, and I think that's really cool that even in a TV situation, they're still able to like portray that without it being like, oh, he's talking to you. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I think that was really cool. But that was my favorite part, just the overall battle itself. And then for me, like I said, I do think Thrawn makes it. I want to say that they're all going to end up on the same ship, and I will probably have a battle on the on Chimera. But as that's happening, like I think some of the resources will get lost, but also they'll still make it, and like Thrawn ends up ultimately making it. I don't think they get left, or something happens to where they get separated initially once Thrawn and the troops make it. I feel like something might spread them apart, right? Again, once they do make it. So I am interested to see how that occurs, but I can guarantee they are going to make it. Like there's no doubt in my mind that Thrawn's going to cross over into this world. So that way we can see why he's not in anything else afterwards, because obviously he wasn't introduced, he wasn't talked about in like episode 7 and stuff. So I hope we'll see if that, and again I really do hope we close out on Bailey. So
yeah.
that is it for me though. But any final thoughts before we head out?
Nope.
All right, guys, that is going to be it for us. Thank you as always for joining us. If you guys like the content, please like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and then go ahead and do all, subscribe, leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys thought about the episode, because we would love to hear your guys' comments and bring them up and stuff like that. So next week is the season finale. We're going to be bringing you guys that, and we also have Loki that we have to plan out too for next week.
Which is only 6 episodes. Did not know that.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yep, 6 episodes I think is good. We need to actually, we'll talk about that another time. But no, I think 6 episodes is fine, because then there'll be some things that don't need to be involved. But
Yeah.
we'll talk about that when we get there. But thank you as always for joining us, guys. Until next time, Fire Team out.